Hello, I'm Nathan Craddock, Tom Green County Auditor, and you're listening to Texas County Voice, a podcast for all 254 counties. Thank you for listening.
Hello, and welcome to another episode of Texas County Voice. I'm Jody Seaburn with the Texas Association of Counties. And with me today is my colleague, Mary Huber, the managing editor of County Magazine. Welcome, Mary.
Hi, Jody. It's great to be here.
Yeah, you're new to tech. You joined us, 3 months ago now? 2 months ago?
Yes, I started in December. I came from the University of Texas. Before that, I was a reporter. I worked for the Austin American-Statesman, talking to county officials, so I'm glad to continue that work here.
So we're here to briefly talk about the new issue of County Magazine, which is freshly out.
Yes.
So tell us a little bit about it.
Out in print, out online, and the main story, obviously, we're in a legislative session this year, so we have a preview of the session that started on January 14th, and I know you're the ledge expert, so tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, I wrote the preview. It's just kind of sets the scene for this year's session and then explores some county priorities. And then there are several sidebars, related stories that give a timeline for the session, lists some TAC resources that our Legislative Services Department provides, mentions things like this podcast and TAC on the Ledge, our video series, and just other things that we have that are legislative related. And what are some of the other top stories in the issue?
So one of our other stories, we look at some of the recent disasters we're seeing in the Texas Panhandle, which have been increasing over the years. And we talk to some of the people there dealing with these challenges, how they're confronting them, and what counties can do to work together to solve some of these problems. We have a story that looks at counties and how they're welcoming filmmakers to their regions. We actually have a lot of counties in Texas that have had films and TV shows hosted there. So you can actually see a full list of some different TV shows and movies you probably know and where they were shot. So if you're interested in seeing where you can see your hometown or Texas County on the screen, we highlight that, and also just sharing some information about how counties can draw filmmakers to their area. There's actually the Texas Film Commission that counties can get involved in and signed up with to promote some of the locations they have that might be interesting to filmmakers. So it's an interesting read to figure out how to get involved in that. And if you're a big fan of dogs, we do have a dog story, which is always a positive.
Mm-hmm. People love their dogs.
People love them. And there's pictures of some dogs in there. So if you like dog stories, a lot of counties now are using therapy dogs to help people calm their nerves that are going into court. It reduces anxiety on really stressful situations. So you can read a little bit about that.
Well, that sounds great. And then we have some of our standard features, including Voices of County Government, which is a feature where we interview a county official each issue. And who is this issue's county official?
And this issue, we'll be hearing from Harris County Clerk Teneshia Hudspeth.
Well, great, because Melissa Molesky, our colleague who interviewed Ms. Hudspeth, also recorded that interview, and you're going to hear that interview now. And if you want to read the story online, it's available on county.org.
Everyone, this is Melissa Molesky from the Texas Association of Counties, and I'm joined here today by Harris County Clerk Teneshia Hudspeth. How are you doing today?
I'm wonderful. Thank you for the opportunity to sit and chat about my journey, county government, and what's happening in Harris County. So thank you.
Hey, so we're going to talk today, as you mentioned, about just some different things that you've been doing with Harris County and just your professional life. So how long have you been the Harris County Clerk?
So I've been the county clerk since November of 2020 in a special election. But I've worked in the clerk's office this November, just past 19 years total. So I started as an administrative assistant in public affairs and elections in 2005, not far removed from college, and 15 years worked in the elections department of the county clerk's office. Definitely didn't think in 2005 that in 2020, I would even still be working in the clerk's office, let alone become the elected county clerk, youngest and first woman of color to sit in this office. Served under 4 county clerks, and there's not too much about this office I just don't know.
So that's quite a long career. What key lessons have you learned along the way that help you now?
Under those 4 county clerks that I mentioned, I worked under, I learned a lot of what you want to do and a lot of things you probably don't want to do. So there were lessons in all those years, that 19 years, even while becoming the county clerk. And every day is just taking it day by day and knowing you can always rebrand, revamp the work that you're doing. And so what I've learned throughout those years, there's always something more to learn. There's always something new to do. And just because you've been in the office for a long time doesn't mean that you don't have good ideas or ways that you can rebrand and revamp the office.
You definitely make it seem pretty cool. So I liked hearing you talk about rebrand and revamp. And so what made you want to run for office? I know you said you worked for the clerk's office for 16 years, but specifically, what was something that made you want to run?
I always had aspirations in public service and in affairs. And so whether I was working in the clerk's office or outside of, I was always doing voter education or participating in voter education and advocacy. So I served on the Urban League board in civic engagement. I served as the social action chair of my sorority, Delta Sigma Theta. And so whether I was getting paid to do the job or not, this is definitely my passion in space. For years, it was all about just educating people on the voting process and elections and how important it was. And then, of course, county clerks, we do so much more work, right? We record all the major events of people's lives, from vital records to helping in courts. I was appointed at the beginning of 2020, appointed the chief deputy of the county clerk's office here in Harris County as the second in command. And by May of 2020, the county clerk at the time stepped down in the middle of her term. And quite frankly, when I wasn't appointed the interim, I thought, I think I should run for this office. Why would I teach somebody the job that I already know? I'm passionate about the work. I know I wanted to be here and continue my career in the clerk's office. And then I had a great push from the community, from people who knew me and had worked with me throughout the years. And I ran, and here I am years later. And I'm super excited to be the county clerk, if you can't tell.
Yeah, 2020 seems like a fever dream with everything that was going on.
Oh, it was indeed a wild time. When I look back over it and I think all of that happening all at one time, presidential year, global pandemic, in the clerk's office, I have about 400 plus employees total. We're the largest county in the state of Texas. Yeah, 200 or so are the elections. The other 200 or so are all of our annex individuals, those who handle real property, public records, the courts, and things of that nature. And it's a big operation with a lot of folks, and it's a huge responsibility because I take that. A lot of these folks I was a staffer with them. I was their coworker. So to become the boss, there's a lot of support there, and individuals that I've grown with throughout the years.
And you mentioned election. So in 2023, is that correct? Your office assumed elections. How did you handle and juggle that with everything else you already had on your plate?
It has been one of the most challenging events since I have been the county clerk. So just to give everyone a perspective, because I talked earlier about how I started working in elections in the fall of 2020, shortly before I was elected to become the county clerk, the Commissioners Court voted to create an elections administrative office. In the state of Texas, there are quite a few counties that are elections administrative office, which are appointed individuals that are considered nonpartisan that run not only elections, but voter registration. And so there's a good amount of those. And so in 2020, right before I was elected to be county clerk, and I thought I was running to run elections as well as everything else, there was a creation of the elections administrative office. So from the fall of 2020 leading into August of 2020, the office was handled by two different appointed EAs. And then we know in 2023, the legislative session presented several bills that later on became laws. One of those laws was to turn elections back to the county clerk and voter registration back to the voter registrar. Although I knew elections, I'd been removed from it for 3 years. A lot of leadership changes had happened in Harris County. However, look, I was elected to do a job for the people of Harris County and elected to follow the law. And that's exactly what I intended on doing. September 1st of 2023 is when we took the operations back, and we were already in full swing of having to run a November election, which was a mayoral race. So it was a lot of pressure. I inherited a lot of new staff, some of people I've worked with before, some I had not. And I will say by far in all my years of being the county clerk or having worked in the county clerk's office, it has been one of the most challenging years I've ever experienced. But it also has been one of the most resilient years as well. We have run my office 8 elections within a year's time. 8 back-to-back elections. I'll tell you, even being the largest county, what people should know, yes, we have more staff. Sometimes we have more resources. Running elections is demanding. No matter how small the county is or how big it is, the same amount of work has to be done. But I have an amazing team of people. We haven't had much sleep at all. We've been away from our families, making sure democracy works. What I went back is I just went back to my roots, what I had learned and known. The voting equipment and system had changed. There were a lot of changes. And myself and a good team of people who used to do this work with me, who was willing to come back and do it again, I brought a dream team of people together along with the people that were already here doing the work. And we put our heads down and we worked really hard. And I'm happy to say in that year's time, we've run 8 successful elections. We've not repeated any of the concerns before. And I'm really interested in digging into what's going to happen this next legislative session, because I believe our lawmakers need to understand the demands of elections on our counties and our elected officials and their offices. Look, we are your neighbors, we're your family members, we're your church members. We're regular folks making democracy happen. And it's really hard work. It's rewarding. We love the work that we do. But as we talk about how we continue to make democracy work for individuals, continue to make it transparent and have integrity, what resources can we build up for these offices to do their jobs? But one of the other things that I've done too over this last year is make sure that I communicate with all parties. Doesn't matter if you're Democrat, Republican, Libertarian, Green Party, bring everybody to the table and say, you make democracy work. I hope this shines a light on the work that all elections administrators have to do in our state and across the nation. And we need the support of our lawmakers.
I appreciate just hearing about all of the things that, you had to overcome to make sure that these things work, because a lot of people don't see the behind the scenes. They just see what's happening once they're at the voting box. So thank you for sharing that with us. Is there anything interesting or a tidbit or a story that you'd like to share that came from, all of this all the things that happened in the last year? Anything interesting to highlight?
There's a whole lot of interesting things, but we don't have enough time. But what I will tell you, which is very interesting and a huge accomplishment for Harris County, this year we were able to get the Republican and Democratic Party to agree to a joint primary. And we've never had that in the history of elections in Harris County. So this was a historic moment. And part of that effort to talk to people across the aisles, discuss the demands on elections, and something that we know for sure, that there's a higher demand for election workers, but it's less election workers volunteering to step up and do the job. There was meetings upon meetings and different people with different perspectives, but we were able to overcome that and have our very first joint primary. And for those who are listening that don't know what a joint primary means, typically in Texas, in an even year, there's always a primary season. And for years in Harris County, Republicans and Democrats conducted their primaries separately, their own polling locations, or we have countywide here, so we may have shared polling locations, but different setups. And this time, both parties were able to come together in the same polling location, in the same room, and service voters, whether they were Republican or Democrat. And we were able to really overcome obstacles and not have an election where we experienced more challenges because we came together. So by far the most interested, but a great accomplishment for the people of Harris County. And I just hope that we're able to keep this model. There are many other counties in the state of Texas who have been doing it for years. It is a saving point. I'm all about saving voters, saving taxpayer dollars. But it was interesting, and we made it happen.
And then you've noted that as county clerk, one of your primary goals is to provide quality customer service. And you mentioned bipartisanship, no matter, or nonpartisanship, no matter who it is.
That's right.
What specific initiatives or things do you do to achieve this?
Yes. When I became county clerk in 2020, I think I had a lot of folks asking, you worked in the office so long. How are you going to do something different? And I was like, I wasn't the boss. I've got a lot of great ideas. The pandemic brought a lot of new changes for us. Our public facing departments, which is majority of our office, was wide open. Since then, we had made a lot of aesthetical changes to the office department, putting in plexiglass and safety measures for everyone. But one of the very first things is that we made an investment in installing monitors in our courthouse. Here in Harris County, majority of my employees are at 201 Caroline, which is our downtown civil courthouse on multiple floors. And this is a big, beautiful courthouse. But when you get in there and you've got to figure out what office to go to, the very first thing we started doing was putting monitors in all of our floors. So when you got there, you knew immediately where you were at. You could find the departments easy. You can also know if I'm going here, how much is it going to cost me? And so we started building in staff on floors to greet customers to say, hey, can I help you? Do you know where you're going? So we just started going back to basics. I'm a big customer service young lady. And so we started meeting people where they were at. We also birthed a couple of programs that have been pretty incredible and award-winning, one of them being called our Back to School Birth Certificate Saturdays. One of the services that the county clerk's office provides is providing your birth certificate. And in 2021, for the first time ever, we opened our doors on a Saturday at our downtown courthouse for those parents. I was a mother whose son was getting ready to go to kindergarten, and I just took for granted I could go to the third floor of my building and get that record, no time. But I immediately thought about the people like my mother growing up, who was a single parent, who worked 2 jobs, who couldn't get to a government office from 8 to 4:30 to get that Biden document. So we opened our doors on a Saturday in 2021, and people were lined up an hour before we opened our doors to come get those records. I said, I think we're onto something. Let's try it another Saturday. We tried it a second Saturday at one of our annexes in one of the most remote communities, and people were lined up 2 hours before to get these vital records. So we serviced hundreds of people on the weekend. A lot of the second location was in a community where folks ride the metro bus and don't have transportation. And we also provided some free documents for those who couldn't afford it. And we have done it now. We're on our 4th or 5th annual. And since then, we have sponsors that cover the cost of those birth records. We give out backpacks. We have sponsors that come and give out backpacks and other information. And I think it's just a wonderful testament of how county government can work for you, right? How we can work for people in unconventional ways. In one of these years, we received a major award, and some other county offices have adopted this same exact model. And to say that's just one of the many exciting programs that's been birthed out of what we've done. We have moved a lot of our services over to the virtual world, right? No more documents and files, millions of documents now you can go access online. It was time to really make sure our e-filing systems were up. And one of these years, I can't remember exact years, we were able to record that we had recorded over 1 million marriage licenses since the inception of Harris County in 1836. So there are so many incredible programs just like that we've been able to take the clerk's office and revamp and show folks, probably the office that didn't get a lot of attention, how important the work we do really is.
That's amazing. And I can really just hear your passion for what you do. Just even though we're in different locations, I can feel that. How do you maintain that all these years later with everything that you have to do?
You got to feel like when you get up every day is not a job. Now, I will tell you, it can be stressful. It can be very taxing. But when you love what you do, when you have a passion for it, when you feel like it's purpose work, you get up thinking, what else have we not thought of that we can do now, right? And so I think it's all purposeful work. I talk about how when I was a young girl, I remember my mother taking me to go vote with her as a young child into the voting booth. And now I think about the work I'm doing now. I don't think any of that is by surprise. I think my mother was sowing seeds, and a lot of community folks that have sowed seeds over time in public service. I just didn't know what that was going to look like in my adult life. But I really, truly do, no matter how taxing the work can be sometimes, I really do love what I do. I love the people that I get to work with each and every day. And I call us silent little superheroes because you don't know until that event happens. Here are some of the untold stories. Someone might be terminally ill and they want to get married to their loved one. It is our clerks who go to that hospice care or go to that person's home to issue that marriage license as their final wish. These are the stories that most common folks are not going to know the county clerk's office does. And so we don't brag about it, but we're humbled by it, and we get a lot of purpose out of knowing that the work we do is really important each and every day.
Wow. So hearing you talk about your commitment to the work that you do as county clerk, I also see that you do a lot of volunteerism. And how does that complement your work as county clerk? And like, how does that enrich like your life and what you've been doing?
I was brought up in a household where to whom much is given, much is required, right? And one of the things, it was just innate again, my mother committing yourself to service and doing something for others. After going through so much in the pandemic, our office wanted to end the year off in a really positive way. So we adopted this toy drive. And again, my amazing staff all came together. We donated toys and we found a reasonable cause to give it to the Harris County Children's Assessment Center. These are children that have been abused in some manner. And now here we are 5 years in with sponsors and people that help support us. But it really is. We can look at the work we do as a public service, but when you go outside yourself and do something extra, I think that's just the cherry on top is to when I walk away from this, I want people to say the legacy that I've left behind, the legacy of the clerk's office is that we were service oriented.
That's amazing. I love all of the like enthusiasm and the positivity that
Yeah.
you have when you talk about just anything that you do with work or outside of work. So leading to outside of work, do you have any hobbies or interesting things that you do that may surprise even your colleagues?
I don't know if it will surprise my colleagues, but I love live music. I love spending time with my family and getting together with friends.
Yeah, music is great. So I'm glad that you're able to actually do things to recharge your batteries because you need that time. But what is
Absolutely.
your favorite thing about Harris County?
Yeah, what I love about Harris County is it is a melting pot of diversity, right? And when I think about Harris County, I think about how I can go to any side of town and try any kind of cultural, ethnic food, or I can go to a certain side of town and I can shop for certain clothes. I love the diversity and the inclusivity of Harris County. Harris County has allowed me to be not only elected the youngest woman, but the first Black woman to ever be county clerk. I think that's a really big deal. It says a lot about how far we've come in county government in all the years that I've worked here. So that's my favorite part.
And that's one of the favorite things that I have when I visit Harris County is just how much there is to do that is also different. You mentioned about being the first clerk that is Black. February is Black History Month. So, as a leader in public service, what does Black History Month mean to you personally and professionally?
When I entered county government in 2005, it didn't look anything like me, right? There was women in county government, but there were not very many women of color in county government. And so when I think about Black History Month, I think about the history that I've been given the opportunity to create, that I'm opening doors for another woman of color who might want to do this job, be in leadership. I am really, truly the beneficiary of so many other African Americans and history makers. It really did take a village to become Teneshia Hudspeth and to become the county clerk, and people who in this office, in this very own office, who have supported me to get to this place. So Black history means so very much to me. It is legacy and how we want to leave that legacy.
And I love that you mentioned representation really does matter for people, especially seeing someone who looks like you. It makes you think, I can do that too. That's amazing. I feel like we've covered so much. Is there anything you'd like to add?
I want to give a shout out to all the other 253 county clerks in the state of Texas. I get to commune with these folks at conferences from time to time. We do really important work together. Some of our offices differ a little bit in what we do, but for the most part, we all do vital records. We really do it because we love the work that we do, right? I honor them and those that have mentored me and been helpful in my journey. We come together as brothers and sisters, as county clerks and district clerks, and we learn of ways that we can better impact our communities.
It was really great speaking with you, and I appreciate that you have been an open book and sharing all of this information with me and with our listeners. So thank you again for joining us.
You've been listening to Texas County Voice, a podcast from the Texas Association of Counties about the people, issues, and all things important to Texans and Texas counties. To learn more about Texas counties and the Texas Association of Counties, visit county.org.